Welcome into another video. This time we're going over my top 5 fantasy busts for 2023. Coming in at number 5, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Mike Evans. Now, every year he's been in the NFL, he's been a 1,000-yard receiver, and I'm calling it here today. Mike Evans will not be a 1,000-yard receiver. Coming in at quarterback, you have Baker Mayfield. Mayfield has never been able to really establish a fantasy reliable player in the NFL. So I don't think Mike Evans is going to get what he wants. He's going to be very, very frustrated how it goes. I think Chris Godwin will probably be a better fantasy football player than Mike Evans. I think he's just going to be a complete bust. People are going to draft Mike Evans probably in the second round and thinking they're getting a 1,000-yard set it and forget it type of wide receiver. And that's just not what he is with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. So they're definitely going to need an upgrade at that quarterback position. If I'm able to say Mike Evans and suggest Mike Evans should be on your fantasy roster, stay steer clear away from Mike Evans in 2023. I think he will let a lot of people down just based on the offense, not on his talent level. Just the offense just won't be there. They're not going to be a very good football team overall, and I just don't think the offense will be able to have enough opportunity to give Evans that 1,000 yards, and the touchdowns, we're probably going to see a regression there as well. So just stay clear of Mike Evans in 2023. Coming in at number 4, I'm going to talk about DeAndre Swift. A lot of hype around DeAndre Swift. What can he do in this offense? We saw what Miles Sanders did last season. What can DeAndre Swift do? Well, let's just pump the brakes a little bit, Frisco. I think that Swift has a problem with staying healthy and being on the field. He has yet to play a full complement of games in the NFL since his whole tenure with the Lions, and I think that's going to be the same thing here with the Eagles. I just don't see him lasting very long. I don't know if it's just maybe his diet or his regimen. Does he stretch enough? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the style that he runs or the speed that he runs at. It doesn't matter. He gets hurt a lot. And if you can't score fantasy points on your team if you have somebody that's going to be hurt all the time. Now, caveat. If he is able to stay healthy all season long, I think DeAndre Swift would be a nice fantasy football player for your team, but there's just too much red flags, too much of a risk for me to just say and recommend him to be on your fantasy roster and to take him. I would just steer clear of DeAndre Swift, stay clear of the headache. He'll probably be hurt more often than not. Probably be on your IR slot more than in your starting lineup. That's just somebody you don't want on your fantasy team. Just stay away from DeAndre Swift, as I think he is just too much of a hazard for 2023. Coming in at number 3, we're going to talk about James Cook. Now, James Cook playing for the Bills, a lot of people are like, okay, Devin Singletary is gone. Cook should step into this role. But we have to remember they did add Damian Harris in the offseason. And as of the recording of this video, even Dalvin Cook is rumored to be going to the Bills to play with his brother. But we got to think of how small. It's under 200 pounds. And running backs that are under 200 pounds just normally does not fare well in the NFL as a go-to type of back. Maybe a scat back here or there. He did have some flashes last season. But if we're looking for a fantasy football player to be consistent for your team and to produce numbers for you week in and week out, I don't think James Cook is the one to do that for you. I think there's just too much going on for him in the negative route. I think Damian Harris ends up taking the lead role in this backfield if Dalvin Cook doesn't come to town, and James Cook is more of that complimentary role like he did last season with Devin Singletary. So moving on to number 2, we're going to talk about Rashad Bateman. And overall, there's a lot of things that go into this. Let's try to break it down a little bit. Lamar Jackson is not a 350 yard consistent passer every single week in and week out. They brought in Odell Beckham to be the number 1A type of wide receiver for this offense. They drafted a rookie wide receiver in Zay Flowers from Virginia Tech to come in and kind of be the deep ball type of threat. Well, where does that leave Rashad Bateman? I think he's going to end up being the outside wide receiver, the number 2 wide receiver, but Zay Flowers is going to get all that work on the inside. Mark Andrews is going to get a lot of the red zone targets and all the third down work. And Odell Beckham's going to get everything else. Rashad Bateman's one of those guys you're hoping you catch a little 40-yard bomb from. And I think a lot of that's going to be going away because Zay Flowers is going to absorb a lot of that work. So I just don't see a world in where Rashad Bateman would be a nice fantasy asset for your football team. He's just somebody I would rather take a stab at one of these rookie wide receivers than go over with Rashad Bateman. There's a lot of better fish in the sea. Stay away from Rashad Bateman. I think he's definitely a bust for 2023. Coming at the number 1 spot, might take a little heat for this one, but I'm going to say Treylon Burks. Now, Burks, he is the only wide receiver on this team. He was highly touted, highly drafted. I think Okonkwo, the tight end, is going to get more of a workload than Treylon Burks. I just don't see a world where this guy has enough I'm not going to say talent, because I think he's very, very talented wide receiver, but he just hasn't put it together yet. And with the transition from Ryan Tannehill probably to Will Levis, or God forbid Willis, you don't want any of that stuff to be onto your team. Don't worry about the headache. Stay clear away from it. Treylon Burks is somebody, there's going to be a lot of growing pains. And even if he's doing well with Tannehill, sooner rather than later, they're going to get rid of Tannehill. This is his last year in the offense anyway. They're going to move over to one of the other quarterbacks. And the other quarterbacks, in my opinion, just are not ready right now for the NFL. They don't look accurate enough. Treylon Burks, you're going to get a lot of those, 3 catches for 25 yards, and 0 touchdowns. That's just going to be a big frustrating, pulling your hair out. But a lot of people are very high on him because they're like, well, there's nobody else in the offense, which is true. But still, there's not going to be a quarterback good enough to throw them the ball. Almost a similar situation we talked about with Mike Evans, with Baker Mayfield back there. Once they move over to Will Levis or Willis or any of these guys who's not able to really push the ball down the field, even though they say, Levis has this rocket of an arm, it doesn't matter how hard you could throw the ball. You're not accurate, it ain't gonna work out anyway. So I would say just steer clear as a bust for Treylon Burks in 2023.
As always, thank you for watching the video as we continue to ramp up throughout this offseason. That way we can get you best prepared for this upcoming fantasy season. If you wouldn't mind, hit the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. That way you're always up to date with all the information that we come out here. Leave a comment down below. What did you think about the video? Do you have any thoughts? I love to go back and forth with you guys. And ultimately, leave a big like on this video. It really helps out the channel. I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.